The 2024 blockbuster movie adaptation of the hit tabletop game Family Pack is finally here. A magical family heirloom, a werewolf game board, unexpectedly transports a family from their weekend gathering to a small French village in the 15th century, throwing them into a real-life version of the game. The family, finally gathered together, reluctantly agrees to play a game of werewolf at the suggestion of the father, Jerome. In the family, only Grandpa Gilbert and Jerome know the rules of the game, but Gilbert has completely forgotten the rules because he has dementia. The younger family members are absorbed in the internet and refuse to sit at the table to chat with the family. One by one, the family members retreat to their rooms, leaving only Jerome behind. Frustrated, he repacks the cards and locks them back in the box. As soon as the box is locked, the entire villa begins to shake violently. As if an earthquake is hitting, the family rushes to the basement for safety. But when the tremors stop and they emerge, they find their surroundings completely transformed. Their three-story villa is now a wooden cabin. The once high-end neighborhood is now an empty field of grass. After wandering around the cabin for a while, they realize that Clara, the eldest daughter, is missing. Not far from the cabin, they spot a town, which becomes their first destination in the search for Clara. At the town gate, they see a wanted poster with the same surname as Gilbert, suggesting the fugitive might be his ancestor. In the town square, an execution is underway. At night, villagers reportedly transform into werewolves and wreak havoc in the town. The sheriff's investigation identifies a man as the prime suspect, as he was seen out late at night with bloodstains on his clothes. The man explains that he was out looking for a lost sheep and the blood came from an injury he sustained when he fell. The sheriff ignores his explanation and orders the executioner to kill the man, whose blood sprays onto Jerome's neck. Thinking it's all a performance, Jerome tastes the blood, only to discover it's real. Terrified, Jerome quickly leads his family out of the town. On the way back, Marie's alarm clock suddenly goes off, catching the attention of a passing soldier. The soldier accuses Marie of being a witch and draws his sword to kill her. Gilbert, summoning an unknown strength, punches the soldier through his armor, sending him flying dozens of meters. When the family returns to the cabin, strange things start happening. The furniture topples over by itself, and flour spills onto the table. Words appear in the flour, spelling out, "I am Clara." It turns out Clara has been with them all along, invisible and unable to speak. However, Jerome can hear Clara's thoughts.
Mais pourquoi ils m'entendent pas? Ils sont bouchés ou pas?
Ça y est, c'est bon, là on t'entend.
Oh, par contre là j'ai pas parlé hein.
Si, t'as parlé, hein. Vous l'avez entendu là.
Ah non?
Non, du tout.
Oh mais papa, tu lis dans les pensées?
The entire house has changed, but the werewolf game box remains intact. Theo, the movie-savvy brother, realizes that they might have been transported into the game world. Much like in the movie Jumanji, in the werewolf game, each family member is assigned a unique role and ability. Gilbert, with his immense strength, is a hunter. Jerome, able to read minds, is a seer. Clara, who can turn invisible and cannot speak, is a little girl. The other family members' roles remain a mystery until their abilities are revealed. The goal of the game is simple: find and kill all the werewolves to win and escape. Night falls, and the werewolves begin to appear in the town. Late at night, Clara, feeling thirsty, takes a candle to the well to fetch water. Just as she is about to take a sip, she hears the sound of bones crunching nearby. Approaching cautiously, she sees 3 werewolves heading in her direction. Clara rushes back home and telepathically warns Jerome that the werewolves have arrived. Soon after, there's a knock at the door. Opening it cautiously, they find Louise, the youngest sister, who had gone outside because she couldn't hold her bladder. Jerome warns Louise not to go out alone, as her identity is still uncertain. She might be a werewolf. Louise loudly denies being a werewolf. Gilbert steps forward, claiming his 50 years of life experience let him detect liars at a glance. He asks Louise if she is a werewolf and stares deeply into her eyes. To everyone's shock, Louise really is a werewolf, transformed into a wolf. She no longer recognizes her family and pounces on Gilbert. Luckily, Gilbert's immense strength allows him to subdue and tie her up on the spot. The next morning, more victims are found in the town.
Les bêtes ont fait une nouvelle victime!
The family heads into town to find a way to hunt the werewolves. With no money, Clara and Theo are tasked with scavenging food. Meanwhile, Jerome and Marie go to the jail to speak with their wanted ancestor. Theo, revealed to be a thief, steals a blacksmith's bracelet.
T'es où? T'es où?
Arrête!
Using the bracelet, he gains the blacksmith's strength and skills, allowing him to impersonate a guard. Theo uses his newfound ability to sneak Marie into the jail, where they meet their ancestor. Marie asks if the werewolf game was his invention, but he explains that a man wearing wolf pelts brought the game board to him. 3 days after sheltering this man, the town began suffering frequent beast attacks. The man disappeared the next day. Unable to find a way back to 2024 through their ancestor, the family resolves to win the game. The game board shows there are 4 werewolves. Louise is one of them. They theorize that killing just 3 werewolves might be enough to escape. Their conversation is overheard by a man named Piero, who claims to be an artist. Piero confesses that he had planned to rob the cabin, as their ancestor was fated to be burned at the stake soon. Jerome uses his mind-reading ability to verify Piero's intentions and learns something surprising. Determining Piero has no ill intentions, the family releases him. Piero, eager to help, crafts a rubber suit for Clara to make her visible again. He boils rubber and has Clara bathe in it, then paints on facial features and freckles, making her appear lifelike. Meanwhile, the sheriff captures another suspect, a harmless-looking girl. The sheriff admits he wrongfully executed the last suspect but is adamant this girl is a werewolf. Despite her pleas, the sheriff orders her execution, but this time even the executioner protests. For weeks, the sheriff has been executing villagers without proof, thinning the town's population. When the executioner refuses, the sheriff decides to kill the girl himself. Just then, the sun sets, and howls echo outside the town. To everyone's shock, the girl transforms into a werewolf. The werewolf's appearance causes the villagers to flee in panic, just as the werewolf was about to attack a child. The sheriff remained calm in the face of danger and shot it in the heart with an arrow. The dying werewolf reverts to human form, leaving behind a werewolf card. The family retrieves the card and prepares to return to the cabin, but as they turn back, they encounter 2 more werewolves searching the town for prey. Clara instructs her family to hide while she distracts the werewolves. Removing her rubber suit, she becomes completely invisible. Clara created noises near the werewolves, luring them to move in the opposite direction. Because of the thick fog in the town, one of the werewolves accidentally stepped into a trap set on the ground. A nearby soldier, waiting in ambush, prepared to capture the werewolf and claim credit for the kill, but was suddenly attacked from behind by a cloaked figure. The cloaked figure released the werewolf from the trap. Surprisingly, the werewolf didn't harm the cloaked figure but instead carried the unconscious soldier away. Now, with 1 werewolf defeated, the family only needs to find the remaining 2 to win the game. Clara observed the werewolves up close during her earlier distraction efforts, noting their physical traits. Although they had transformed into wolves, some human characteristics remained. One of the werewolves was a female with white claws, likely older in age. The other was a male with a beer belly and a limp. The male werewolf with the beer belly was eventually found with Louise's help. He turned out to be a drunken gambler who had just been kicked out of a tavern and ran into Louise and Gilbert. Using his hunter's abilities, Gilbert successfully defeated the werewolf and claimed his card. Meanwhile, Marie found herself in trouble. While investigating suspects, she encountered a woman with bloodstains on her clothes and assumed she was a werewolf. However, the woman explained that the blood came from her husband beating her. In the 15th century, domestic violence was so commonplace that it was seen as an everyday occurrence, and the woman herself didn't seem particularly upset. Marie, however, was outraged and insisted on confronting the husband to demand justice. Marie declared herself the woman's temporary attorney and vowed to help pursue her abusive husband. Unfortunately, there were no laws against domestic violence in this era. Not only did Marie fail to secure justice for the woman, but she was also publicly scorned by the gathered men. Frustrated, Marie gave the woman her phone number, suggesting she call her for help if she ever faced abuse again. But Marie forgot one critical detail. In the 15th century, literacy in women was often equated with witchcraft. As a result, Marie was accused of being a witch and thrown into a dungeon. The next day, Marie and the ancestor were brought to the execution site. They stood on a pile of firewood as the executioner prepared his torch. At the sheriff's signal, they would be burned alive. Jerome, armed with an ancient guitar, began performing a song to divert the crowd's attention. Meanwhile, the invisible Clara used the distraction to untie Marie and the ancestor. Before the sheriff could react, they escaped in a horse-drawn carriage driven by Theo. On the run, the family received help from Piero again. Piero directed them to a nearby church, where he had built a secret tunnel. To open the tunnel, They needed to input the code 316. The family traveled until nightfall, finally reaching the church. They entered 316, but instead of opening the tunnel, it attracted a werewolf. The family's 3 strongest fighters stepped forward to battle the werewolf. Louise, wearing her headphones, had not yet transformed. Despite their combined efforts, the werewolf overpowered them one by one. At that moment, the sheriff arrived at the church. Everyone assumed he was there to slay the werewolf with his bow and arrow, but to their shock, he aimed the arrow at the family instead. Jerome realized the truth: the female werewolf was the sheriff's wife. The sheriff's wife, who baked bread daily, always had flour-covered hands. When she transformed, her claws turned white from the flour residue. It also became clear that the mysterious cloaked figure who had rescued the werewolf earlier was the sheriff himself. With the sheriff's aid, the werewolves grew bolder, advancing menacingly toward the family. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Louise's headphones ran out of battery. A piercing howl triggered Louise's transformation into a werewolf. Louise, now fully transformed, initially saw her family as prey. She bared her teeth and advanced toward Jerome and Marie. Desperate to reach her, Marie began singing a childhood lullaby, hoping to awaken Louise's human consciousness. The lullaby worked. Louise turned her attention to the sheriff and his wife. Despite her small size, Louise proved a formidable match against the two. Louise, distracted by her family's cheers, let her guard down. The sheriff's wife seized the opportunity, slamming Louise into the wall with a heavy blow, killing her instantly. As the family was consumed by grief, at this critical moment, Marie stepped forward. It turned out Marie's role was indeed the witch. Using her powers, Marie first defeated the sheriff's wife with a spell. Then, she used a potion to bring Louise back to life. With all the werewolves defeated, the game ended, and everyone's roles were fully revealed. Most of the roles matched their abilities, but the sheriff's role was unique. He was Cupid. This meant he was bound to protect his werewolf partner, his wife. After winning the game, the family says goodbye to the others, and it is then that they learn that Piero's full name is Leonardo Piero da Vinci. Hearing this, Jerome's expression grew serious. He quickly called the ancestor aside for a private conversation.
Tu achètes tout ce qu'il peint. Tu plaisantes? Il peint que des bouses. Tu achètes tout, je te dis. Tout.
Gilbert placed all the cards back into the game box and pressed the button. With a flash of white light, the family returned to 2024. Not long after, the family visited a Da Vinci exhibition at a museum. Beneath each painting was a plaque stating it was donated by their family. To their surprise, the most famous painting, Mona Lisa, was no longer a woman, it was a man.
C'est le foie gras.